General principles. 9Age Fantasy Battles is a turn-based game. A standard game lasts for 6 game rounds, each divided into 2-player turns. At the start of the battle, one player has the first player turn, in which they use their units to perform various actions, such as moving, casting spells, or charging, while their opponent gets to react. After this, the other player has their first player turn. When this comes to an end, the game turn 1 is complete. In game turn 1, the first player now has their second player turn, and so on, until both players have completed 6 player rounds, player turns. This marks the end of the game. In the player turn, each player turn is divided into 5 phases, performed in the following order: charge phase, movement phase, magic phase, shooting phase, and melee phase. Also, we are having active player and reactive player. The active player is the player whose turn it currently is. The reactive player is the player whose player turn it currently is not. Also, we are having the simultaneous effects. Whenever 2 or more effects occur at the same time, resolve effects controlled by the active player. If there is a choice involved, the active player must declare the use of their abilities before the reactive player. Each player is free to decide in which order they resolve their own simultaneous abilities. Once both players have declared the use and order of their abilities, resolve their effects, starting with those of the active player. For example, if both players have abilities that may be activated at the start of the magic phase, the player whose magic phase is must choose first whether or not they are using their abilities, and in which order. Then, the reactive player may choose to use their abilities or not. After that, the effects of the abilities from both sides are resolved, starting with the active player's abilities. Also, we are having terms friendly and enemy. The rules often refer to a friendly or enemy player turn, friendly or enemy models, friendly or enemy units, etc. In this context, the term enemy refers to your opponent's player's turn, models, units, etc., while friendly is actually yours. Also, we are having one use only effects. Actually, it's the effects that can be used only once per game. In the fantasy battles, dices are often used to determine random outcomes. Most commonly used type is the 6-sided dice, referred as a d6, with a range from 1 to 6. The effects of dice roll are often dependent on whatever the actual roll should be equal to or higher than a set value. For an example, you should roll 2+, that means that your roll should be 2 or higher. Sometimes you should roll multiple dices. If rule tells you that you should roll 3d6, that means that you roll 3 6-sided dices, and the result should be added together. Also, we are having the modified dice rolls. In these occasions, a dice of roll may be modified by adding or subtracting number, such as a d6 plus 1, d6 plus 2, etc. In such cases, simply add the relevant number or subtract it from the roll. The natural roll tells you that if you should roll a d6 natural roll, that means that the natural roll of a d6 refers to the value of the dice before any modifiers are applied to it. Also, sometimes you may re-roll your dices, or you may roll a d3 or maximized roll or minimized roll. In this case, you should remember that dice can only be re-rolled once. When you are rolling a d3, you just roll a d6 dice, then halving the result, rounding up, so the result can be only 1, 2, or 3. If the game requires a natural 1 or natural 6 roll when rolling a d3, it always refers to the value of a d6 before halving. Also, we are having maximized and minimized roll. For dice rolls subject to maximized roll, roll 1 additional d6 and discard the lowest d6 rolled. For dice rolls subject to minimized rolls, roll 1 additional d6 and discard the highest d6 rolls. These rules are cumulative. The results of the discarded d6 are ignored for all intents and purposes. Also, we are having the direction dice and roll random directions. The direction dice is a special 6-sided dice with all sides marked with an arrow. Certain rules may ask the player to determine a random direction. In such cases, roll the direction dice and then use the direction in which the arrow points. Alternatively, the direction dice can be represented by rolling a standard 6-sided dice using the side with the single dot to represent the direction of an arrow as depicted on the figure. If rolling a result of 1 or 6, use the central dot in the 5 to represent the direction of the arrow instead.